The scariest thing I saw was one night I was taking a dump. This is a true story. The way you do this, okay, number one, you just pee in the pool, okay? But if you have to go number two, you go into the pool because you don't want a floater in your pool, right? That's
of course
like Caddyshack. You don't want that,
right?
So what you do is you don't take a tank. You just take your mask and your fins.
The robot's arm extended slowly toward the seafloor. 250 feet below the Pacific Ocean's surface. Complete darkness, crushing pressure, the kind of place where metal bends and implodes. The remotely operated vehicle, Sebastian, locked onto a small section of volcanic crust, a slab of hardened lava, about 20 inches square. The scientists aboard the research vessel Falkor were watching the live feed. They wanted rock samples, standard deep-sea geology. The robotic arm gripped the edge, applied pressure, and lifted. The seafloor flipped over like a manhole cover, and underneath, where there should have been solid rock, there was a cavity, a hollow space filled with warm fluid-filled chambers. And moving inside those chambers were worms, giant tubeworms, sea snails, creatures dangling from the ceiling like bats in a cave. The scientists went silent, because this wasn't supposed to exist. Animals don't live beneath the ocean floor. Only microbes, only bacteria. That's what every textbook said. But the camera wasn't lying. There were hundreds of them, thriving in an ecosystem that shouldn't be possible. Welcome to the underworld. Hydrothermal vents are some of the most hostile environments on Earth. They sit along deep-sea cracks where tectonic plates meet, where the Earth's crust is being ripped apart. Magma pushes up from below, seawater seeps through fissures in the rock, gets superheated to over 750 degrees Fahrenheit, then explodes back out into the freezing ocean like an underwater geyser. The fluid is loaded with minerals, sulfur, iron, copper, so dense with particles it looks like black smoke. Hence the name black smokers. The temperature differential is extreme, boiling water shooting into 35-degree ocean. The pressure is crushing, over 200 times atmospheric pressure at sea level, and there's zero sunlight. Photosynthesis is impossible. Yet life thrives here. Giant clams, ghostly eelpout fish, yeti crabs covered in bacteria-laden hair, spindly, octopuses, and the most iconic residents, tubeworms. These creatures are biological marvels. They have no mouth, no stomach, no digestive system. They survive through a partnership with bacteria living inside their bodies. The bacteria use the chemical energy from the vent fluid, hydrogen sulfide, and methane to produce sugars. Chemosynthesis. It's life without the sun. Since hydrothermal vents were discovered in 1977, scientists have studied them obsessively. They represent one of the only ecosystems on Earth that doesn't rely on solar energy. They're a blueprint for how life could exist on other planets. Europa, Enceladus, moons with subsurface oceans heated by geological activity. But until 2023, every study focused on what lives around the vents, on the seafloor surface. Nobody looked underneath, because the assumption was simple. Beneath the crust, there's only rock. Solid, impenetrable volcanic rock. And even if there were cracks, the conditions would be too extreme, too hot, too unstable. That assumption just shattered. Summer 2023. Dr. Monica Bright leads an expedition to the East Pacific Rise, a massive underwater volcanic ridge stretching from the Gulf of California to Antarctica. It's one of the most geologically active places on the planet. Two tectonic plates, the Pacific Plate and the Nazca Plate, are pulling apart at a rate of about 6 inches per year. As they separate, magma rises to fill the gap, creating new oceanic crust. The team targeted a hydrothermal vent site they named Fava Flow Suburbs, located at 9-50 yen on the East Pacific Rise. Depth, 2,515 meters, over 8,200 feet down. They deployed Sebastian, a state-of-the-art, remotely operated vehicle equipped with robotic arms, high-definition cameras, and collection tools. Their mission was to find a new ecosystem. It was to solve a mystery, the mystery of the disappearing larvae. Giant tubeworms, Riftia pachyptila, are everywhere around hydrothermal vents, dense colonies, towering structures. They're the foundation species, the first to colonize new vents. But here's the problem. Their larvae are almost never found in the water column. Adult tubeworms are sessile. They anchor to the seafloor and don't move, like barnacles. So reproduction happens through larvae. Tiny, free-swimming juveniles less than 1 millimeter long. Standard marine biology says these larvae should drift in ocean currents, settle on new vents, grow into adults. But when researchers sample the water around vents, the larvae aren't there. It's like they vanish. Dr. Sabine Gollner, a marine biologist at the Royal Netherlands Institute for Sea Research, had a theory. What if the larvae aren't swimming through the water, What if they're traveling underground through fluid-filled cracks in the volcanic crust, using the hydrothermal circulation system as a highway? It sounded wild, but it explained the data. So they designed an experiment. Glue mesh boxes over cracks in the seafloor. Wait a few. Days. Come back and see if anything's inside. The boxes were cumbersome, hard to place, hard to retrieve. So they tried a more direct approach, flip the floor, and see what's underneath. When Sebastian lifted that first slab of seafloor, the team wasn't prepared for what they saw. The live video feed showed a cavity about 4 inches tall, carved through the volcanic rock. The walls were rough, porous basalt, lava that had cooled rapidly when it hit seawater. And covering those walls, hanging from the ceiling, were tubeworms. Not larvae, adults. Dozens of them. Oasisia alveni, pale, ghostly worms, dangling like stalactites. Some wrapped around solidified lava drips. Rock formations that looked like melted candles frozen in time. In one cavity, they counted over 200 individual worms. Just in that single space, they also found Riftia pecuptila, the giant tube worms. These are the big ones, red and white, up to half a meter long. Some were partially inside the cavity with their feeding, plumes sticking out through cracks into the ocean above, feeding on both the warm vent fluid below and the cold, oxygen-rich seawater above, a biological bridge between two worlds. But it wasn't just tube worms. There were polychaete worms, carnivorous bristleworms with segmented bodies and sharp jaws. There were snails, sediment-eating gastropods crawling along the cavity floors. There were mussels, species previously only found on the surface. And there were unidentified organisms, things they'd never seen before. The water inside the cavities was warm, about 77 degrees Fahrenheit, 25 degrees Celsius, comfortable by deep sea standards. The surrounding ocean is near freezing, but the hydrothermal fluid circulating through the rock keeps these chambers heated, like underfloor heating. The fluid is the same mineral-rich soup that feeds the surface vents, sulfides, methane, hydrogen, perfect for chemosynthetic bacteria. The team lifted 5 more sections of seafloor. Each one revealed the same thing, hidden cavities, teeming with life, an entire ecosystem, layered beneath the one we already knew about. Dr. Bright's words captured it perfectly. To our knowledge, it is the first time animal life has been discovered in the ocean crust. Think about what this means. We've studied hydrothermal vents for nearly 50 years, thousands of research papers, hundreds of expeditions, billions of dollars in funding, and we never looked down. We mapped the surface, we cataloged the species, we measured the chemistry, but we never flipped the floor. It's like studying a forest by only looking at the treetops. And then one day, realizing there's an entire underground network of roots and tunnels connecting everything. That's what this discovery represents. A hidden layer, a subsurface biosphere. And here's the kicker. Nobody knows how extensive it is. The cavities they found were directly beneath active vents. But how far do they extend? Horizontally, the cavities could be localized, just pockets around individual vent openings, or they could form continuous networks, tunnels stretching for miles, connecting vent systems across the entire ridge. Vertically, it's even more uncertain. The animals were found about 10 centimeters below the surface, 4 inches. But the Earth's crust at mid-ocean ridges can be several kilometers thick. How deep do these cavities go? Microbes have been found living 6 miles below the seafloor. Extremophiles thriving in temperatures over 250 degrees Fahrenheit. But animals need cooler temperatures. Oxygen, food sources. Dr. Sabine Gallner addressed this. At the moment, we don't know how deep animals could live beneath the seabed. The deeper into the seafloor, the hotter it gets as the mantle draws nearer. Soon, it would get too hot for animals to live. But the discovery suggests that wherever hydrothermal circulation exists, there might be habitable space, and hydrothermal circulation happens along every mid-ocean ridge on the planet. That's over 40,000 miles of volcanic mountain ranges, most of it unexplored. Rachel Lauer, a geologist at the University of Calgary, put it bluntly. Every study just confirms how little we understand about the seafloor. The implications go far beyond just adding new species to a list. This discovery rewrites how we understand deep-sea ecosystems. It proves that seafloor and subseafloor communities are connected. They're not separate habitats. They're two halves of the same system. The larvae mystery? Solved. Tubeworm larvae do disperse through the cracks. They travel in the warm vent fluid. Some settle in surface vents, others stay underground. Grow to adulthood in the cavities. This explains why they're never found in open water. They never enter open water. They use the subsurface as a nursery, protected from predators, buffered from temperature extremes. This changes survival strategies. Surface tubeworms are exposed, vulnerable. When a vent shuts off, they die. the entire colony collapses. But if there's a subsurface population, they survive. They're buffered. The system is more resilient than we thought. It also changes geochemical flux measurements. Scientists calculate how much carbon and sulfur are being cycled through vent ecosystems. Those calculations are based on surface biomass, the animals we can see. But if there's an equal or greater biomass underground, the numbers are wrong. We've been underestimating the biological impact of hydrothermal systems, potentially by a factor of 2 or more. And then there's the astrobiology angle. If life can thrive beneath Earth's seafloor, it strengthens the case for life beneath the ice of Europa or Enceladus. We've always said if there's liquid water and chemical energy, life might exist. But this discovery shows life doesn't just exist at the interface. It penetrates. It finds every niche, every crack, every thermal gradient. Julie Huber, a geochemist at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, wasn't surprised. The discovery is not entirely surprising, she said. But proving it changes everything. Speculation becomes data. Theory becomes fact. But there's a darker side to this discovery. Timing. The expedition happened in 2023. The paper published in October 2024, right as deep-sea mining companies are ramping up exploration. Hydrothermal vents sit on mineral-rich deposits, cobalt, nickel, copper, rare earth elements, materials needed for batteries, for renewable energy technology, for smartphones. Mining companies want to extract those minerals. They argue it's less destructive than land-based mining. They say the environmental impact is manageable, but this discovery proves they don't even know what they'd be destroying. If you drill into the seafloor, you disrupt the hydrothermal circulation. You reroute the fluid pathways. The surface vent might shut off. The subsurface cavities might collapse or flood with sediment. The animals that live there, animals we just discovered, would die, along with species we haven't even identified yet. Dr. Bright's team emphasized this in their paper. They called for stronger protections, legal frameworks that account for both surface and subsurface ecosystems, because current environmental assessments only look at what's visible, what's above the floor. If it's not on camera, it's not counted. Dr. Magdalena Georgieva, a vent researcher who wasn't involved in the study, agrees. This study highlights another facet of these communities that we know very little about. We already knew that vent ecosystems were localized, but we now know there are multiple stacked on top of each other. The team only lifted 6 small sections of seafloor, each one 20 by 20 inches. They did it carefully, minimally invasive, and even that small disturbance could have lasting effects. Now imagine commercial mining, massive drill rigs, excavators scraping square kilometers of crust. The damage would be irreversible. Here's where things get speculative, but the data supports it. If animals are living 4 inches below the seafloor in 77-degree water, what's living deeper, at 1 meter down, at 10 meters, the temperature gradient in volcanic crust isn't linear. There are thermal layers, sweet spots where the temperature is perfect, where fluid circulates, where minerals concentrate. Microbial life exists at extreme depths, we know that. But what if there are larger organisms we haven't found yet? Not worms and snails, but something adapted to higher pressures, higher temperatures, creatures that never surface, that live their entire lives in the dark, hot, pressurized underworld of the oceanic crust. This ties into the concept of a deep biosphere, the idea that life exists not just on the surface, but throughout the Earth's crust, in fractures, in aquifers, in pore spaces between rock grains. Estimates suggest the deep biosphere might contain more biomass than all surface life combined, but most of it is microbial, single-celled organisms. This discovery suggests the deep biosphere isn't just microbes, it's animals, complex, multicellular life, with ecosystems, food webs, predators and prey. And if that's true at hydrothermal vents, could it be true elsewhere? In other volcanic systems? In continental crust? There are caves on land filled with chemosynthetic life. Movil Cave in Romania, Frasassi Caves in Italy, fed by hydrogen sulfide from deep underground. No sunlight, just chemistry. Could there be similar systems beneath the continents? Networks of cavities, heated by geothermal gradients, hosting ecosystems we've never imagined? Sounds like science fiction. But 50 years ago, the idea of life at hydrothermal vents sounded like science fiction. And now we're finding life beneath them. The frontier keeps moving. The impossible keeps becoming real. The discovery at Fava Flow suburbs is just the beginning. The team plans to sequence the genetics of animals collected from both surface and subsurface communities, compare their DNA, see how closely related they are, determine if subsurface populations are genetically distinct, or if there's constant gene flow between layers. They also want to map the extent of the cavities, use seismic imaging, ground-penetrating sonar, create 3D models of the subsurface architecture, see if the network is local or global, if it's isolated pockets or interconnected highways, and they want to find out what else is down there. The species they identified are known from surface vents, but in one cavity, they found organisms they couldn't classify, unidentified worms, strange structures, things that don't match any database. Dr. Bright summarized it perfectly. As a scientist, you find out something, and then there are 10 more questions you have. The ocean floor is the last great frontier on Earth. We've explored more of the surface of Mars than we have of our own deep sea, and this discovery proves we're not just missing species, we're missing entire dimensions, entire layers of life. The subsurface biosphere isn't empty. It's not just rock and magma, it's alive, and we've only just started to look. So here's the question. Do you think there are more hidden ecosystems beneath the seafloor? And if animals can live in volcanic cavities under crushing pressure, what does that mean for life on other planets? This discovery forces us to rethink everything. The deep sea isn't just about what we see on camera, it's about what's hidden, what's beneath, what's waiting in the cracks. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below, and if this blew your mind, smash that like button and subscribe, because we're diving deeper, uncovering more secrets, more impossible ecosystems. You don't want to miss what we find next. Thanks for watching.